Well, so that little animated opening sequence may be where we begin this process from. Certainly not in this present moment, and certainly distracted from the things that really bring us happiness. So welcome to this ACT-based video course. So through engaging in this course and coming back to it repeatedly as needed, I'm hoping you will get a first-hand understanding of the basic concepts of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and be able to apply these ideas practically to yourself in your day-to-day life. ACT is now something which has been with us for 40 years. There's lots of peer-reviewed data to support its efficacy. So it's not something which is woo-woo and grabbed out of thin air. It is very much based on clinical data. So simply put, if you wish to introduce change into your life, and if you think it's necessary somehow to change, then the ideas and concepts of ACT do work. Good news. In a recent interview, Dr. Stephen Hayes, the originator of acceptance and commitment therapy, notes that psychological flexibility, knowing what it is, and applying its principles to our daily life is the key to leading a meaningful life. Let me quote him directly. This is quite a long quote, but let me see if I can get this right first time. So he says, if you learn to be more cognitively and emotionally open, and come consciously into the present moment in a way that allows you to attend to what's going on in a flexible, fluid, and voluntary way, and then you use those skills to focus on what's deeply important to you, what your deepest values are, and put those into habits. And then if you extend that to your relationships and take care of your body, you're doing about 95% of everything we know about how change happens and how to live an empowered life in any area you can name, from mental health to dealing with physical disease to social justice and social wellness. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? And one that arises after 40 years of engaging in the process of ACT and delving into human behavior and asking very important questions like, why is it that we suffer? And what can we do to help alleviate our suffering so that we don't have to, and so that we can lead a meaningful life? So since its inception in the mid-1980s, ACT has been gaining a lot of attention from both psychologists and members of the public as a modality that is effective in bringing deep, long-lasting positive change into our lives. Because simply put, it doesn't seek to reduce symptoms as CBT does, but to make room for difficult thoughts and feelings through acceptance. So in a sense, what we're doing is we are looking to define what our lives will be like in a perfect world kind of thing, setting up signposts and constructing a path towards those realities, whilst maintaining the idea that we are not perfect in the present moment and things are a work in progress. So it's like building a road. The road is not perfect straight away. It may require some modifications and alignments as we go through, but the path ahead is something that's clearly defined by our values. So along this path, the tools that we use are mindfulness as a basic concept, surrender, acceptance, present moment awareness, values-based action, and most powerfully, understanding that all of our experiences, thoughts and feelings occur whilst being held in a greater ground of being. Not sure if that makes sense at this present time, but hopefully by the end of this course, that will be a foundational concept that we can return to. It sounds complicated. However, using the ACT Hexaflex, we can consider each element separately and build our understanding of the whole process step by step. So let's look at the Hexaflex briefly and give an overview of what we will be considering in the lessons coming up. And as promised, here we have the... No, we don't. Let's have a look. There we go. And here we have the Hexaflex. So it's a pictorial representation of what it means to be psychologically flexible. It's a great little picture, and one which is quite self-explanatory, really. But let's see. So the psychological flexibility is defined as living in the present moment, being driven by values, committing to action, self as context, diffusion, and acceptance. So those 6 concepts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes. And in the red writing underneath the black, you have the opposites, the inflexible aspects of ourselves. So if we find ourselves, for example, being unable to contact the present moment and being pulled into the past or being anxious about the future or whatever, that's one of the things that we can work on if we are aware of the fact. We could be leading lives that are lacking direction, just going from one day to the next without any meaningful path for us, something that gives us meaning. We could be stuck in inaction. So many people we can see are actually very good at procrastinating, right? Putting things off they need to do until the very last moment, and then suddenly it's all overpowering and maddening and causing a lot of stress. So the question there is really, why is that happening? Self as context is something that is probably, in my mind, the most important aspect of this psychologically flexible model. And it takes a bit of explaining that one, but we'll come back to that, of course. Diffusion and cognitive fusion. Cognitive fusion is probably linked to states where you are in Plato's cave and you don't realize that you are being manipulated by exterior forces. You're fused with a concept that may be outdated regarding yourself. You may be still subscribing to outdated belief systems that really no longer support who you are, and so on. Experiential avoidance. Again, this links back to Procrastination, really. For example, we want to be musicians and things like that, or live performers, but we avoid the actual performance because it terrifies us, or we are afraid of failure and all those kinds of things. So there are various complex reasons why the various inflexibilities exist in our life. But through this course, we'll be looking at each one of these 6 aspects individually, illustrating how the inflexible aspects appear, and then how we can actually contact the flexible aspects to bring change into our lives. So it's a map, and as any map, it's not the territory, right? So we have to, when we are presented with something like this, we have to know that there is work ahead. We have to walk the walk. We can't just say, oh, here's a map, and keep looking at it and say, well, it's going to happen eventually for me if I keep looking at it. It's not the case. So maybe the first thing we can look at is actually the values, giving us direction and things like that. Okay, so let's get on with that. So that's where we start. Let's get on with it, shall we?